Hey everyone, thanks for being with me. So today I want to talk about something that might sound pretty basic at first, the difference between freedom and liberty. But here's the thing, how people understood these ideas back in ancient Greece and Rome was actually pretty different from what we think about today. And honestly, understanding this difference might help us figure out some of the political mess we're dealing with right now. Let's start with the ancient Greeks. When philosophers like Plato talked about freedom, they weren't just talking about being able to do whatever you want. Actually, they thought that was kind of backwards. In Plato's Republic, Socrates makes an interesting point. He says that persons who just do whatever they feel like doing, like a tyrant, is actually the least free person. Why? Because they're basically a slave to their own desires and impulses. They can't control themselves. Xenophon, in a similar idea in his Memorabilia, writes about how Socrates believed that self-control was the most important virtue you could have. So for these guys, real freedom meant being able to govern yourself rationally, not just acting on every urge that popped up in your head. Now compare that to how we usually think about freedom today. Most modern thinkers start with people like Hobbes and Bentham. See liberty basically as being left alone, freedom from other people, interfering with what you want to do. Isaiah Berlin wrote in his famous essay called Two Concepts of Liberty, where he basically said liberty is just the absence of obstacles, especially from government. The problem is this kind of freedom doesn't really care whether you're doing good or bad. It's morally neutral. The Romans had another take on this. Cicero, in his De Republica, wasn't interested in giving anybody equal say in government. Instead, he thought liberty should serve something he called concordia, basically civic harmony. For him, real liberty meant having a balanced government where the Senate's authority was respected. He actually said something like, "Our law gives people the appearance of liberty while preserving the influence of aristocracy and preventing disputes." So Roman liberty was very much like maintaining order and hierarchy. Some modern scholars, like Philip Pettit, try to reinterpret Roman liberty as non-denomination, freedom from arbitrary power. But another historian, like Wierzbowski and Brent, point out that this might be oversimplifying things. The Romans were actually pretty willing to suspend individual liberties when they thought that the Republic was in danger. Here's what's interesting. The Greeks connected freedom to virtue. The Romans connected it to civil order. But we've basically separated liberty from any moral purpose at all. Edmund Burke saw this coming, warned that liberty without virtue could be the greatest of all possible evils. Maybe looking back at how these ancient civilizations thought about freedom and liberty can help us think more clearly about what responsible liberty should look like in our own time. Thanks for listening.